Hello, and welcome to another weekly Affaircare podcast. My name is Cindy Taylor. I'm the one of the co-founders here at Affaircare, along with my dear hubby David, who is the man behind the camera. We are doing a refresh on our site, and I don't know if you guys are technical people or not, or whatever, but we have made a major change on the site where we have gone from essentially a free site, affaircare.com, at WordPress.com, and we've gone to being self-hosted, and now we're using WordPress.org, so we have a lot more opportunities and things that we can do with our site, and we're very, very excited. But it does mean that we're doing a little bit of a refresh on some of the pages, on some of the links, on search engine optimization, all kinds of things that we're doing behind the scenes. So we thought it would be fun to do a little refresh series. And this month, during the month of August, we're doing a series on refreshing you on some of our more basic or typical questions and content that we have on the Affaircare site. Last week, we talked about the signs that your spouse might be having an affair. That's probably one of our most popular articles. Thousands of people literally see it every day, and so we thought that would be a really good one to put on a podcast and talk about that topic again. And this week, we're going to be talking about what is an affair and how do they occur, especially how do they start. Again, these things we feel like are kind of basic, so we just wanted to refresh your memory of how we define an affair or how we define infidelity, and then also how do affairs get started. Let's dive in. What is an affair? Okay, first, just so you know, we do have an article about what an affair is, and we'll put the little link like right here. This is our little article does dive more deeply into the topic of what an affair is. But you know me, I love to define. And the reason I love to do that is because then we all know, like, we are on the same page as far as what do we mean and what do we consider an affair in infidelity. So the definition for we are actually refreshing the definition a little bit as we do this site refresh. So we're going to change it. Our definition is that infidelity is giving less than 100% of your affection, loyalty, and companionship to your spouse. So you can see we added the part, the and companionship, because we believe that's vitally important. Just to rephrase it in another way, that would be giving any percentage of your affection, loyalty, or companionship to someone other than your spouse. So, in talking about this particular topic, one of the things that we believe is important to bring up even in the definition is what marriage is. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply right now because we are planning a series in September about what marriage is, what biblical marriage is. So we will leave, a lot of that discussion to then. But for now, we define marriage the way that it is defined in the Bible. That is, it is a man and a woman who covenant for a lifetime of giving love before God. We do work with several people who are, they're living together or they're in a serious relationship and they say the other person was unfaithful. And I understand that when you're living together or when you're in an exclusive relationship, let's say, there's that expectation of exclusivity. But in a biblical marriage, there has been a covenant vow made, and that's like almost like if you will, a legal binding contract. Whereas in the instances of living together or a serious relationship, those situations don't have some of that legal binding. And so what we do when we're here at Affaircare, we focus on specifically Christian people and people who are in a biblical marriage. That doesn't mean some of the other stuff doesn't apply or won't be helpful for others. It just means that's kind of, like our target, if you will. Our target people that we're aiming at are people who are Christians who are in a biblical marriage. So when you're in a marriage, you have made that vow, you've made a lifetime covenant that you will give love to another person. This is very important because too often people think of marriage as, what am I going to get out of it? Am I going to get my needs met? That kind of thing. So that's not marriage. This is a lifetime covenant, a promise that you will give love to another person. So, okay. And then the other thing we kind of need to discuss, regarding this definition, is the idea that people say to us, well, hey, wait a minute, I have to give some affection to my children and relatives and stuff. What about that? Okay, this is true. You do have to give affection to your children. And you do have affection for your relatives and even to some degree, a little bit, friends in the sense of, you care about them and they've been your friend maybe your whole life, whatever. But that's not the intent of this definition. The intent of this definition is to recognize that marriage vows promise those three things in a very intimate way only to your spouse. That is to say, in a marriage relationship, but the man and the woman both, get to know their spouse deeply and intimately on all levels, and they are known by their spouse deeply and intimately on all levels. And this is above and beyond the way that you know and get to know your children or your relatives. So you see what we're talking about when you say affection. It's the marriage affection that is reserved for your spouse only. When we say loyalty, we say the marriage loyalty that is reserved for your spouse only. And the companionship would be, again, a lifetime of being, you do recreational things together, you do parenting things together, you do financial things together, companionship. And actually, you just should be friends with each other. So that's the another part of the definition that people often will ask us about, basically. So, and then finally, we're talking about what is an affair, okay? And what we frequently get is the feeling that people are asking, how far can I go and still get away with it? That's really the why they want to know what an affair is because they want to know, well, can I talk all day? Can I text people? What if I say they're just a friend? And the idea is, how far can I go and still get away with what I'm doing and what I want to do? Okay. Instead, it's just the way we define it. It is emotional infidelity if you give even a little of the affection that should go to your spouse to another person. It is an emotional affair if you give someone loyalty over your spouse. And it is an emotional affair if you are a companion to someone or something else other than your spouse. And here you might think, for example, of a football widow. How often have you had, you've heard, it's like a cliche out there, but, the guys will pretty much ditch their wives and go off and go with their football buddies, and they play football, and they watch football, and they go to football games, and they go to their own, and it's like they just completely ditch their wives. They're giving their companionship to a game, football. So that is what an affair is, okay? And I'll just say it one more time. It's giving less than 100% of your affection, loyalty, and companionship to your spouse. In other words, giving any percentage or portion to someone other than your spouse. So next, let's talk about how do affairs start. Again, we do have another article that goes more deeply into this topic, and here we'll put the link right here again, like we always do. And let's just say that the first step that usually happens, how affairs start. I'm going to again address specifically to Christians, but it's still good news, good information for everyone. But as a Christian, we have an obligation, a duty, to vigorously guard against sin and rigorously root it out, so that we are not, we're disobeying God, and we are on a regular basis looking for the sin in our life and trying to get rid of it, so that we are obeying. So usually affairs start with that very first step, which is we're not vigorously guarding against sin. And if we know of a sin, we're not rigorous at rooting it out. Getting, like pulling a weed, envision pulling a weed. So a very, very typical example would be when you're with your spouse and you don't, I know I have a weakness toward people giving me a compliment. So I vigorously guard against that by A, knowing my weakness, and B, working on pride and how easy I can fall for flattery. This is vigorously, and so it's like I envision putting like a guard chain fence around the marriage, that I'm going to defend my marriage by knowing where my weakness is. So that's usually actually how they start, is that you're a little bit less vigorous at guarding against some sin, or maybe you get a little bit lazy at, I know this is kind of a weakness, but it's been years, I'll just, I won't worry about it as bad. Or also, if you happen to know that, like, I have a weakness when I drink, and you're not rigorous at rooting out the sin, that is to say, I'm not going to, if this is my problem, I'm not going to have alcohol in the house, because I want to obey God. So that's kind of where it starts, is that attitude of just letting the weest bit of a root take hold. Okay? The next little step, actually, is that there's a switch from, pleasing God to pleasing self. And you switch from pursuing godliness to pursuing your own happiness. So that when you're a Christian, you put the highest priority at pleasing God. Even sometimes if you're not happy, you don't feel happy, you can still take satisfaction from knowing what I'm doing is pleasing God. I know this for a fact, so I'm going to do it, even if it doesn't feel happy, right? Or likewise, if you know that you're pursuing a godly life, taking the time to pray and read your Bible can be a distraction from getting straight to work. But you do it anyway because you're pursuing godliness, right? Your top priority is being godly and pleasing God. But when you switch from that to where your top priority is yourself and your own happiness, there you've begun. It's like the second little step in starting an affair, because what you're thinking is, well, let me just say this. It is human nature, I think, to want to be happy and to sort of pursue what you think will bring you happiness. Okay? But as a Christian, we have that obligation, that duty to deny our natural sinful selves and become more and more like God. And that's the difference. It's not that we have to be unhappy, so don't misunderstand me. In fact, by pursuing godliness, he does promise us his joy. So, but when the top priority shifts to yourself and making yourself feel happy, that's when it's like the second step in starting an affair. And then the actual affair itself usually starts in a way that seems fairly innocent, but it's actually crossing a very small line. And so here, what I think of, envision like there's the train track. Here's the train track to godliness. And even Jesus says that the way to heaven is thin, and that few will follow that way, but the way to hell is wide and easy to follow. So think of it like a little thin, I think of it as like a little thin train track. And you get just a little bit off the rail. And as an example, often an affair will start with finding someone on Facebook who you went to school with back in high school. Okay, now in and of itself, that is innocent. You meet somebody on Facebook. Hey, it's nice to see you again. Goodbye. Do you know what I mean? seems like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you begin to then speak to that person more than you're speaking to your spouse, you see, here's the rail. You started to go off just a little tiny bit by thinking of your own happiness and putting yourself, another little step off. You met someone, another little step off. You're speaking to them more than you're speaking to your spouse. And pretty soon, it's a small line, another little small line, another little small line. And it snowballs. And pretty soon, you are off track of the godly life and you're heading toward a train wreck. This is how affairs start. And it's very important to find out when here's the straight and narrow, and to know your own self enough to say, this is where I am tempted to get off the straight and narrow, and keep the habit and make the habit of getting yourself back onto the track. I did this, I need to get back on the track. That's why guarding against sin and rooting it out is so very important. So finally, just to give you an example of how affairs go, we have an article. It's called How an Emotional Affair Progresses. And I'm pretty sure David will put it right through here. This particular little article is a great one because what it does is it sort of shows how you start off talking about your spouse and, how's your spouse? Oh, you've got kids. That's great. How are you doing? It's good to hear from you. Well, my spouse travels for a living. Actually, I kind of miss him when he travels. And pretty soon you're talking about things that you're not happy about you're not happy about your spouse. And rather than talking to them, your spouse, about it, you're talking to this other person, and pretty soon it turns into an emotional affair. And usually when there's the emotional affair, you want, there's that, you have a desire to get together, and it turns into a physical affair. So that little article will show you just how they progress and how easy it is to, like I said, snowball right into an adultery. So thank you very much for taking the time out to come to the podcast. Next week we'll be continuing our little refresh series, and then through the month of August. And in September, as I mentioned, we have a great series coming up we're working on right now. It's basically what a marriage is. And we're going to define, some of the things about marriage that are in the Bible. And we're going to go through, there's actually, amazingly, 4 parts that we want to go over. So that'll be a great little series for the month of September. Hope you'll join us. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day, and God bless. Bye-bye.